For August, with the new budget, Commissioner Mason will lead us in the pledge, and Commissioner Winters will say the blessing. If you would, please stand.
Our Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for many blessings to us in this community. Bless this. Pleasing to those that send it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. All right, thank you. Just a quick reminder to have your mics on if you're recognized, and I'd like to welcome everybody. Director Susan Wilcott and Commissioner Bay is going to join us today. Thank you for being here, sir. Going to our agenda, first item up for bid is a report from the mayor. Mayor Davis, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your credit card report, fire department, all good. Assessor, all good. Sheriff, all good. Mayor, no charges. EMA, all good. The only other thing I have is I did pass out a copy of a letter from a secret safe place for newborns. This is a program we participate in as far as it, being a safe place for drop-off at our ambulance stations. And anyway, I think the letter's self-explanatory. They're asking for a donation, and so I pass it on the commission for you to consider if you'd like to sometime in the future. And unless there's questions, that's all I have.
Mayor, I apologize. Have we donated to this organization before in the past?
Do what now?
Have we donated to this?
Not that I don't know of. I don't recall them ever requesting anything. They did request us to be a safe place, and we are at 2 ambulance locations. We could be at, they mentioned in their letter about fire stations. We could take those on if they wanted us to, but I think this is the first time we've been asked for money from the organization. And it's self-explanatory, but it's basically to promote what they do and where those locations are, that kind of thing.
All right. If it's all right with the committee, I'll put this on next month's agenda, and we'll get in touch with them, find out a little bit more, and bring it to the finance committee in September, if that's okay with everybody. Mr. Alford?
Yeah.
Last page.
I was just trying to be thorough, but
$250.
if you want to make
I
something.
make a motion, go ahead and get
Very good.
$250.
We have a motion from Commissioner Alford to fund the $250. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Mayor?
Out of $5.99.
Of course. Yes, sir.
Course.
Sorry.
Make it part of the motion.
That'll be coming out of the County Commission's account, line 599. You got that, Lori? All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Lori, if you'll help me put that on tonight's agenda, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner Alford. Anything else, Mayor?
That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Going to the agenda, now go to the budget amendments. First budget amendment we have from Bradley County Road Department. She is decreasing expenses $4,500, and she's moving it over to her workers' comp line. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Commissioner Slater.
So with this being the first of the year in July, did they not have $4,500 in their budget for workers' comp for 2023-24?
When we set the budget, I estimate what it's going to be. I lowered that one because I thought it would be $4,500 less. We left enough in their PNC line, so all they're doing is moving it.
All right. Anything else? Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the next budget amendment. We're going to roll this one. This is the $30 for the cell phone. We'll move that to September, Lori. Next one is from the county mayor's office, $10,000. He's moving from the fund balance noticed the fund that this is coming out of, Fund 128, which is the federal money, art money, and he is moving it into 719 office equipment. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion? Mary, do you want to? We're good.
No, I was just gonna say the next two are two things that were not in your budget that you approved recently that we're asking you to allow us to take from ARP. I'll go ahead and talk about both of them. One of them is for the accounting department copier, and then also the next one is for some incentives for the nursing home to help out with their staffing issues out there. These are not in the approved plan yet, nor the budget. If you approve them, we can go ahead and do them, and they'll be in the updated plan when it comes back to you after we find out about water next month.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Slater.
I have a question about the nursing home. Did they not receive ARP bonus money last October or October a year ago when other county employees did?
Yes.
So is this an additional bonus for them?
I didn't say it was a bonus, but it is something they've asked for help on to help them with their, not only retention, but also in getting additional employees. They've had a major hit with the new veterans home is what's happened, and
Yeah.
so they're in big need of some help.
Is this for all employees or specific employees or?
It's for, my understanding, their need is CNAs and nurses, healthcare, not others.
Not administrative staff?
Right. The number I put together to come up with this one was based on the number of nurses and CNAs.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Winters.
Sitting on this board for now a decade now, there's a major competition now for RNs, CNAs, and constantly keeping staff, keeping people working on weekends. People don't want to work weekends. They don't want to work with the challenges that are out there. So this is a mechanism for the director, to be able to keep people working and keep them retained. And if he could bring on some new people, it would be money that would help do that. But it's in those categories. It's not just blanket, just across. They did get ARP money. It was really necessary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does that answer or address your concerns there?
I don't know that I have concerns. I just wanted some further
Yeah, well,
explanation of what it was.
Yeah, the mayor's, they, I think, lost 5 employees to the veterans home. Nothing against the veterans. We all support it 100%. It's just that when it opened up, some decided to go to other pastures if they went. So but I think, Mayor, this is going to work more of an incentive package. When we talked to Scott the other day,
Like a sign-on
whereas
bonus.
that was work that was already been done, there's going to be some agreements that if they take this incentive package, they've got to give a year or something like that. That's still to be worked out, but it's to help retain employees. All right. And the mayor talked about the printer. I'm sorry, Commissioner Offer, please.
This 60,000 going to be an ongoing thing, or is it just this one time a deal?
My understanding is a one time,
one time.
to get them through this. Was it 4 or 5 who left?
Or 5 that left.
5 nurses that left the Bradley Care and went to the veterans. Again, nothing against the veterans. I mean, it's just they submitted their notification. They went over there.
And it's not only that institution; it's other places.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a financial war to get the best people possible in facilities, which is.
And
Yeah,
that's
you know how much
that's
these
in
travel
every
nurses are getting
industry.
paid? I'm sorry, Commissioner Slater.
That's in every industry.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody good? We're gonna vote on this one, then we'll take on the second one with the printer. Or this is the printer. I'm sorry, and then we'll do the printer package. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion already on this one?
We did.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Now moving on to the next one that the mayor we just chatted about. A little pre-discussion before the motion in a second. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Next one is 10,000 coming out of our 599 over for legal fees. These are for respective lawsuits that are documented and the pages coming next to it. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Alford. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the next budget amendment. There you see the local government deductible. All right, moving on to Bradley County Emergency Management Agency, $517. I believe, Renee, this is a check that came in on the last budget, and you're just moving it out of fund balance into expense line. Very good. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Oh. This is my bad. Oh. Need it. Sorry. You guys know he's going to. Where was that? We've already passed Troy's.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving to the next budget amendment on page 16. Thank you. He's moving $36,970.28 out of his fund balance into expenses. He has those itemized right there. This is a reimbursement for his HCI. I believe, yeah, the pickleball is done. So this is basically, he used his budget up front. He's being reimbursed. I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Lori, I believe that concludes that project, right? Very good. Next budget amendment, Bradley County EMS, $6,128 coming out of an undesignated fund balance into his 790, and it is for the Dodge Durango. Okay, yeah, this is the one that towards the end of the year, this is the same thing. They closed the PO, money came in, vehicle came in, now you gotta bring it back in, right? Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0.
Marlon, this next one is the duplicates, so skip it.
What page do I need to go to?
Go to page 23.
Go to page 23 because there's some duplicates in there. We don't have to vote on it twice. Next budget amendment, Bradley County EMS, $22,440.10. It's moving money out of the fund balance. And you see the, this is a insurance reimbursement. I have a motion to accept the amendment from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the next budget amendment. There you see the VFIS check. There you go. Next budget amendment is from Bradley County Fire and Rescue. Notice you're in a different fund, 121, $5,000. He is increasing his revenue and he's increasing his expenses, so it's money coming in. A refund for overpaying uniforms, which I find a bit interesting. I have a motion to accept the amendment from Commissioner Slater. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. And there you see the documentation and the check. Next, you have Bradley County Sheriff's Office, $2,500 moving from the fund balance, and she's putting it into the contracted services law enforcement. This is the same as what the money came in the last budget as well. That's what usually happens in the August finances. A lot of stuff from the last one is get carried over, and in September you're going to see a lot of stuff move over from reserve accounts. All right, Do we have a motion? Have a motion from Commissioner Offer, have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the next budget amendment. There you see the supporting documentation and from the Monroe County Department of Finance. We're getting ready to go to page 31. All right, page, increase in revenue, increase in expenses by 72,000. This is the COVID grant, and they're going to put the money in prisoner clothing and equipment respectively. This is the one they talked about the other day in the committee. I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. And there you see the documentation. And there's quite a bit of documentation, I believe. I hope you guys all read that because there's a quiz at the end. Lori, what page are we?
It'll go to 91.
Go to 91. A lot of scrolling.
Yeah, the next packet, I'll try to only put the one sheet in there.
Yeah, and if you want the supporting documentation on a grant like that, just get with Lori and she'll get it to you. I usually just read the Cliff Notes first. And it's scrolling, but then it slows down. Yeah.
Ninety-one.
91 as it's written on the document, 93 if you're looking at the PDF reader. And that puts us to the Bradley County Sheriff's Office, budget amendment, $1,275,000. This is the SRO money that, Commissioner Alford's committee was talking about the other day. So it's in a report that we got from the revenue, so the money's already been wired over to the account. Now this puts it into the lines, and she itemizes it here where everything's going for the $1,275,000. Very good.
I move this.
I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Slater.
Before
Any
you vote, let me tell you, I will have to make a correction on when we send them in to be for for commission. She's got that she's increasing revenue on the second section, and I will make sure it says expense.
And point out, this is a separate budget, so this grant money is not going into the sheriff's budget. It will be a separate SRO grant budget. Grant goes away.
Did you have to create 99951?
Right.
Yes.
That account never existed until now, right?
No, that's just one of those numbers that they do give me to use, so yes.
Same thing with that VCF, although we'd already created, it's a separate budget also.
So the employees that get paid from this money, this will be out of,
Only in this line, yes.
very good. And this is an ongoing grant, right?
Should be every year, yes.
Yeah.
We'll, same thing like we do with the litter grant, we create a separate budget when it comes in, so every year we'll create or reapprove this one, whatever.
Do I have a motion? I have a motion from Commissioner, do I already have it?
And
You already.
I already got it,
we
sorry,
already
I'm,
did it. We did it again. Do it again.
yeah. All right, any further discussions on this? Thank you.
Can I ask one here?
Please, Commissioner Winters.
For these coming on the grant, do they still have their fringe benefits? The county pays for that, or is that out of the grant?
yes, they still have the benefits just as an employee does.
But the benefits are in this
Comes
budget.
out of the grant.
It's in, yeah.
The grant covered everything.
Good, good, good. Thank you.
And then some. I mean,
Well, a lot of money for equipment and so forth also, yeah.
Great.
please.
Were you able to verify what I asked you last week about Lake Forest and the SROs? I don't remember either.
Just for clarity, what was your,
It said that there were, in her minutes from the law enforcement meeting, it said that there were going to be 2 SROs at Lake Forest paid for by the fund. And we thought it was just one paid for by the fund and one paid for by the county.
Yeah, the grant will only pay for one per school, but originally it said two. Is that right? Yes. So in addition to the grant, we are funding an extra one at Bradley, an extra one at Walker Valley. Are we funding an extra one at Lake Forest?
I don't think we're doing an extra. Lake Forest High Center's getting an extra, but I think
High
the
Center.
the program's gonna pay for it, right?
Yeah, the program's paying for the Pie Center. But the real question is, are we paying for an extra one at Lake Forest? So is that three, Bradley? Okay, and one at Bradley and one at Walker Valley, so we're paying in the sheriff's budget for three SROs. And the reason we're not at Ocoee Middle is because they declared the Pie Center and
Gold Academy.
Golden, a
Separate.
separate location, so we got three there. So it's paying for all of the SROs except for three where we're doubling up.
Or we used to pay for 16 or 17. So,
Yeah,
that
don't point that out to them, but yes.
well, I mean, it's a good thing.
As I said the other day, this is one of the best things the state has done, and the money came in. Going through this department, it's been great as opposed to a lot of those that other grant, and a lot of those go through another program that is very complicated. This one, the money arrived, it's got restrictions, they've got to do reports on it and those kind of things. They had to do the MOU with the schools, but other than that, it's been a great thing.
All right, very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the next one. There you see the documentation, and
The next page will be 103.
going to page 103, is it's written on the paper, or 105 in the PDF reader? Bradley County Sheriff's Office, $65,400. Increase in revenue and increase in expenses, so it's money coming in. This is the litter grant we were just talking about. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Alford. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion?
And this, like the other one, is a separate budget, and if you'll notice at budget time, I zero it out, and when the new grant comes in, then we add the revenue and create the budget again.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Moving on, there you see the documentation. Scroll. We're scrolling. Okay. Yep, 120. Bradley County Sheriff's Office, $239,746. This is the VCIF grant. The violent crime that the detective the other day was talking about and stuff like that. So this is going into their account.
It's going into this one. We created a separate budget also, but we did it in the last budget year for a partial year, and now this is the rest of that grant for the next year. When you're totaling up what we spend, they're based on grants, so I'm not complaining, but when you total up what we spend on law enforcement, you got about 10 budgets to total up. Don't forget that. And this is another one of them. It's all grant money, and then we keep it separate, so when the grant goes away, it's not just automatically there, if that makes sense. So
And before you vote on this one, I will also make a correction on the first part. It's not decreasing revenue, it will be increasing revenue.
Yeah.
Great.
Money coming in.
Yeah.
We ought to send this up back over there. Just kid. A hate mail would be unbelievable
From the committee.
from Cassandra. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented? I have a motion from Commissioner Alford. I have a second from Commissioner Winters. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Alford.
Curiosity, Mayor, on these grants, all these different kind of grants, what happens if we don't use all the money in a grant? Where's that money go from there?
well, some of them are different. One of them, for example, There are different answers to that question. One came up recently. Well, what do you call the one, the transport grant? It may be coming up here in a minute too. Uh, they track it, and what you don't spend, they'll deduct it off of what you get next year, that kind of thing. So there's different answers for different grants. Most of these, ones like the one you just looked at, probably you might have to return it, but you can bet it will be spent. But some of them work different ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And some of them, like this next one, bleed into the next year. This law enforcement grant is a federal budget year for whatever reason, and you budget for last year, and now you've got a budget for July, August, September of this year. So it's a partial year grant to match their federal budget.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. There you have the supporting documentation. And that takes us to page 123. Bradley County Sheriff's Office, increase in revenue and increase in revenue.
Well, the
Where it
second
should
one,
be-
Should be
expenses.
expense.
This isn't her first day.
They use
22,000.
existing forms and they forget to
She's
change
just
them
testing to see if we're
sometimes.
watching it. That's
And this
20
is the one I was talking about. It's to finish out the federal budget year, so it's a 3 months.
traffic
Right.
safety. $22,660.88. It is money coming in, so that increase, the itemization of lines should be expense. Right? All right. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Taking us to the next budget amendment, 24,000. I don't know what she's doing on this one because it's all blanked out.
Yeah, I had a little problem when I was trying to redact the check stubs. This one is, they're going to decrease an expense because we've already got the money in the opioid fund. It's not increasing revenue. And it will increase the expense where they're moving the money from one expense line to the other.
So I assume that
If,
the
if, I,
purchasing of a,
if I could add, this is the first time you've dealt with this budget. This is the 111 budget for the opioid money. If you recall, pretty much it's page 81 in your budget, but everything is laid out of what will be spent how, except if you recall, there's one line item that says other contracted services. And out to the right of that column, I put that would be determined by the commission later. You've got $195,000 in that line. What you're doing with this amendment here is you're moving 24,000 into the proper line for this purchase of the K9. So it's your decision that you're spending 24,000 of that 195 for this purpose. I left 195,000 to be spent at your all's discretion, and this is the first time you've done that.
yeah.
It's the first time you've addressed this budget period, really.
So I was just thinking it falls within the guidelines to help you because these K9s, they discover if someone's got
Yep.
stuff in their car
Yep.
or what have you. So
And there's a twice a year report on this, I believe, Renee, that we've not had to do yet, but there is, I believe, twice a year that there's a report has to be made of these expenditures. So that will be coming up, at the halfway mark
Yeah.
too. But anyway, I just want to make sure that you all realize that's the 111 fund. It's an entirely separate fund because different uses of the money. And the amount will vary each year, should be approximately this amount of money, but it will vary each year. We got another small one in recently, or word that one was coming recently, a small amount, so we'll possibly budget it, amend it, revenue and so forth as we go on too.
all right. So this is just the person. They budget. I think I'm going by memory, which I should never do. They budget about 15,000 a year for the maintenance of the K9s. They have to go to the vet and all that kind of stuff. Wouldn't the opioid, wouldn't their maintenance also qualify for opioid instead of using their regular account?
That would be
So in
up
other
to
words,
them.
15,000, I know they have to get their shots regularly and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sure their attitude was they have money budgeted for that, so if you'll just let us buy the dog out of the opioid.
But I'd rather use
but yeah.
opioid money for their maintenance, their vet bills and all that, save this money over on their side, if it qualifies.
It
Lord.
probably would, but just for your thought process, don't forget, opioid money isn't just for detectives, whether they be human or dogs, or it's also for some treatment.
But that's already been budgeted.
No, I'm talking about citizen treatment. With the only thing we budgeted is for some for our employees, you know, the first responders. That's in there. But this line here potentially is for organizations that provide treatment for people who have this issue. So the opioid council wants you to spend money on preventing it and finding out who's doing it, the detective part of it, but they also want you to spend money on treatment. That's what this line is for. Those organizations will be coming in the near future saying, we would like to provide a service, blah, 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 and it'll be up to you all what you do. So don't forget, this line is the only line that's not pre-spent, you might say. So you need to have some for treatment in there to keep the council happy.
Which we do.
Well, this line is that what you have.
But we.
You also have drug court, yeah,
That's
but
what Judge Freiberg's.
you have juvenile drug court, which have they ever sent us information? We've got to create them a budget. They'll be coming to you with a budget to create from their line also, juvenile drug court. And then there's some in there for adult drug court. But I can't speak on behalf of the council, okay? But the opioid council wants money, some of it to be spent for treatment of people who may have these issues. Not everybody that has an issue has gotten in trouble. Does that make sense? I can name you somebody right now that needs treatment. They've not gotten in trouble yet. And until that is provided through the opioid council money, I have nowhere to, you know what I'm saying? Now, that person can go out here and get picked up for shoplifting and go to juvenile drug court or his drug court, and there's help for them. But until they get in trouble, there's no help for them. So
All right.
part of your opioid money is for helping our citizens also.
There's, I saw CTAS sent us something that there's a opioid class coming up where they're gonna talk about projected revenue for the next 3 or 4 years. I was gonna attend that. But anyway, the maintenance of the canine, we can work on that in the 24-25 budget, if that makes sense. But for right now, we're good. 24,000, from the opioid, it's in its own fund. Do we have a motion and a second yet? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Slater. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Moving on to the next budget amendment, page 125, $7,187.50. Sale of equipment. Sold cell phones to purchase equipment for motorcycle deputies. Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the amendment? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. And there you see the upside down check. There we go. And page 127, Bradley County Sheriff's Office, $7.20. Woohoo! And it's you itemize the whole thing. $7 going. Do I have a motion to accept the whopping $7.20? I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Alford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. And there you see the check. And why we have a she sent the budget then now. All right, last on here is the mayor is making a recommendation to change the fund balance policies on
No,
those.
there's one before.
I
need
didn't
you
see
to
it.
approve that, yeah, the budget page that you were just looking at.
Page 129 and 130.
And let's
If you'll
sideways.
notice on there, your expenditure total is not well, it's calculated correct on this one, the one you approved in the budget. The $648,000 did not get moved over to the total. I'm getting this fixed before the state comes back and goes, you screwed up on your budget page. It was correct in the mayor's, it was correct in the finance, but when I moved it over to commission, I didn't copy the electronic calculation. We don't call it formulas.
All right,
So I
so
just need you to approve my correction.
you
To do that.
make a motion.
My motion,
What's your motion?
that we approve her corrections.
I have a motion from Commissioner Winters to approve Director Samples' corrections on
Yes.
page 129. Do I have a second?
And 130.
And
130.
130. Not just one, but you guessed it too.
Two. Be glad.
When you
You'll
approve
amend your
those,
motion?
Yeah, to cover both of those.
when you approve those 2 pages, they would replace the 2 pages that's probably in your budget book if you had one.
I got
These
one.
are the correct pages, and the budget book is wrong. So if you've got a book, then you would replace those 2 pages with these 2.
Okay. Lori, remind me to print those out. All right. I have a motion from Commissioner Winters. I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes 5-0. That takes us to the last page, 131. The mayor is making a recommendation. We make some adjustments to the fund balance policy per fund. Obviously, the general fund is currently at 10%, and he's recommending we increase that to 15%. County Road Department, I'm going by memory here, but I think that stays the same. Bradley County School Board, Susan, that stays at 5, unless you guys want to increase it.
Mhm.
Debt services, that is an increase from, is it 13 months to 15
Right.
months? County fire is actually a decrease to 6%, I believe, from 8. And I believe the others are, well, what's new is the opioid fund. It's new fund altogether, so it's not a change, it's just an addition. Let me get a motion in a second, then I'll recognize the mayor and he can explain further what's going on. I have a motion from Commissioner Slater, I have a second from Commissioner Mason. Mayor, do you want to expand on that, what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, we're expected to update the reserve fund policy from time to time, and we haven't done it since, when was the last date? In '08, I believe, as far as the overall part. General fund, of course, I would like to have it at 20, but as I was telling Mylan, we don't want to go that far because then we will have an audit finding from time to time. But it definitely needs to be higher than 10, so we're requesting it go to 15. That way, we're required to have 15. We need bigger than that to meet cash flow issues as far as payroll, as you've heard over the years. But at least go up to 15. On the debt service, with the interest rates the way they are now, we ideally need more than 13 months. So we're suggesting to go to 15. And that means you've got enough always in fund balance to meet the next 15 months. Variable rate, for example, is monthly. It's not annually like you think of. And with the rates higher, that amount sometimes is not high enough. County fire is at 8 now. We're suggesting to lower it to 6. That's to protect you from an audit finding in the next couple of years. And then you had asked for one on the opioid fund. It does have some salaries in there, so we're suggesting that it be set at 5, which is most of that fund is not salaries, but there is some salaries in there.
Anybody have any questions? So, Mayor, I was thinking about the 15 months on the debt services, and you go through and you look at the payment per month. Not all months are the same. Some months you make a very large payment, and some months you don't make much at all, relative.
The
So the
variable rate
15
ones,
the
for
15
example, on a monthly, we pay monthly interest. On a fixed rate one, we pay interest twice a year. That would be a big one, and we pay principal once a year. That would be a big one. So those monthly ones are the ones that have increased, and we're not in a problem or anything. It's just that we need to require ourselves to have a little more there than we've been requiring.
The budget that we're currently in right now was passed with the idea of it being 13 months. So if we change this now, 15 months, do we have to go put some more money in those funds, or is the effective date of these new policies?
Well, no, we're okay. I was trying to think, for example, the general fund, what did we budget? But it was more than
Well, it was
that.
more than
So
15%, so we don't
and
touch
the
that
same
one.
thing on this one, we've got more than that there, but we're not required to have, and we should be. That's the difference. It's not that we have a problem, it's just that to prevent future problems, we ought to do this. The
Alright.
fire fund, for example, meets the 8% this year, but we need to go ahead and have it lowered because it won't eventually.
All right. So we're changing the fund balance policies, and this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is really going to come into effect on when we're working on the next budget. Because right now, this budget's pretty much set with not much change needed with respects to
Right.
revenue projections. But the 24-25 with these new,
That's when it will make a
it's
difference
going to make a
because
difference on
I think we're
our money
covered
to
for this
spend.
current year, yeah.
So we really need some growth next year. Really. All right. Everybody understand what we're doing? And this will be on the consent agenda. I assume that's okay. All right. When it goes to the full commission.
It could go in your finance packet as part
Okay.
of your recommendations.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Passes 5-0. Mayor Davis.
Could you pull out, I think the only one that's urgent is, could you pull out the 2 ARP amendments that you approved and do them tonight as opposed to waiting? So we
Sure.
could go ahead and get those two addressed. Since
Sure.
that's the case where the money's there, it's just the authorization to do it.
Sure.
For example, the nursing home don't need to wait 2 weeks if they could get it now, and the same thing with the other one. But I think that's the only ones in there that should go tonight. You
Which
think of any others?
Was there,
Re-
which ones do you have for me to present tonight? There's another one. Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
Safe Baby and the art money.
Safe Baby and the 2 for art would be great if you would.
All right. That concludes the budget amendments. We're going back to the agenda. The only item we have on there is one that I put on there. And Mayor, a couple weeks ago, you brought to our attention the cash flow statement and added it to the minutes of the meeting. I was just thinking if it's all possible before we get into the next budget, the 24-25 budget, if we could receive a cash flow statement.
It would be easier to give it to you like this time of year after we've done it for the budget, which we would do when we send to them in July. We have one now we could give you if you want it
I was under the impression, like that you have to send one to the state.
in July.
You send
That's
it in
what
July.
I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole concept of a cash flow statement is basically look at how your burn rate.
Right.
So,
It's part of what they have to approve, which tonight I have the letter from the state where they've approved the budget because of all those things being in there. But yeah, we could get you a copy of that
So-
one because what I was saying last week when you asked about it, I wasn't 100% sure, but we have to do one when we borrow money and with the state requires it with the budget
okay,
each year.
so if we have to borrow money, that'll be an additional one to
Right.
the one that we'll
Right.
now from here on out every July we can have a cash flow statement to study.
Yeah, or you usually don't meet in July, so give it to you at this meeting every year would be the easiest way to remember it.
My bad. You
Yeah.
But
And
just, Lori, if you'll get that and send it out, I'll be forever in your debt. Go ahead.
Renee, you get her a copy of the one that went with the state. Can I have just a second on,
Please.
sort of on that subject? The state did a real good job of preparing this fancy chart for us, but it's somewhat bragging points for Bradley County. It's overview and fiscal health metrics, financial trends, and comptroller budget review. It's something they do every year when they get our budget, and for some reason they decide to spend laminated things and send out. But to give you an example, cash on hand, and they're always a year behind, of course, so they're talking about year 22. Cash on hand was 12,000,004, annual expenditures 42 million. So using only cash that the county could fund, we can fund 108 days, which is the bare minimum. But anyway, the days of average expenditures before exhausting cash reserves is 108 days. 30% of the annual expenditures can be paid with available cash. They want you to definitely be above 16%. We're at 30. Ideally, it should be more than that. They show a chart. Back in 13, we got down fairly low. Then we came back up to 30%. Then in the year 20, we got low kind of again. And now it's back up to 30%. So that's the important thing about your cash flow statement that everyone can understand simpler is what you're doing with cash flow. An interesting thing, and it's not sour grapes or anything, don't get me wrong, but an interesting thing on the chart is the last time we had a dip in cash flow was in 2020, the year after a tax increase. Now, if you recall, I mentioned then salaries were funded with tax increase. Salary increases for some people was funded with that tax increase. And I said, you're funding 1 year of that salary increase, but it's going to snowball because that salary keeps going up every year with raises. And because of that, the next year, the cash flow kind of dipped because we didn't have a second tax increase to cover that salary increase that was still in place and getting higher. So that's a dip in it, but it's still, it only got down to about 20-something%.
we
Debt
also-
relative to assessed value. You guys are asked that a lot, and usually we talk about it at budget time, but this is coming from the comptroller's office. General government debt, 74 million. This was last year. We've paid down twice since then, but 74 million. The assessed value, defined as the estimated total property tax or the portion of appraised values within the county subject to property tax, $3,166,474,000, which is a ratio of outstanding debt of 2%. Now, it may not mean a lot to you, but they want you to be below 8%. We usually are at 2, 3, maybe 4%. We're at 2% now. It's a bragging fact. We're only at 2%. Our ratio of outstanding debt to our relative assessed value is 2%. They want you to be below 8, and the average county is at 3. So we're a little bit better than the average county, but we usually stay right around there. Other counties go up and down. They also have a chart, and you're all welcome to look at this afterwards if you want to. The general fund 10-year financial trend. Revenues and as compared to spending and cash flow. And it will show you sort of what that chart did. Every year, our revenues are more than our spending, except in the last 10 years, twice. And that happens to be when the cash flow also went down. So twice in the last 10 years, all of the other years, our revenues have been more than our spending, which is what you always want. So 80% of the time. And then they get to the letter that I'll pass out tonight. The budget status is approved, of course. No budget certificate, something that's always, they get me on. To qualify for a budget certificate, a county must adopt a budget on or before the fiscal year end. We adopted it July the 3rd, the very first day of business after the year ended. But they want it June the 30th. So I say that because sometimes some of you will ask me, can we delay the budget process? Guys, we don't want to delay it. We want to get it earlier, not later. next year, I've already looked at the calendar, we'll be approving the budget on July the 1st. Can't do it the 30th or the 29th unless you want to come in on Saturday or Sunday, and I doubt that we'll be ready to do it on the 28th. But that's how close we're getting. But anyway, that's the only thing that's not, in my perspective, perfect about our budget is that we don't adopt it before the fiscal year ends. But this year we adopted it the very first next business day after the end, and it'll be the same next year. But because of that, we don't get the budget certificate. So I just wanted you to understand, and that's coming from them. I've said it millions of times. It's not something I dreamed up. I wish we could meet that, but it's pretty hard with our long process of appeals and all of that stuff. It's hard to back it up another week. We could have easily approved the budget 2 weeks earlier this year by cutting out what's called appeals. Nobody else has appeals, by the way, but we do, and I know it's one of those things you can't go away from once you have it, but without doing away with appeals, I don't know that we'll ever meet that. We could come in with a special meeting, but I have to wait for the appeals before I can advertise it in the newspaper, and then I got to wait so many days before it can be adopted, so very rarely could we do it any earlier with the process we have in place. So just information you probably didn't care about, but it's important from the county perspective.
No, I
We're
care
in
about
great
it.
shape, days of cash on hand, we're in great shape of cash to expenditures, the ratio of outstanding debt, all of that's great. The only imperfection is that day that we adopt the budget, so.
So with that said, Mayor, if we're gonna get dinged for not having it on June 30th, what does it matter if it's July 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or?
That could be your attitude, but I want to be able to say we got it approved as soon as we possibly could.
I was just going for the
after
joke,
that.
Mayor. I understand it's not gonna change, but
It's one of those
on
goals I've
things-
never been able to reach,
on-
and I would love to reach it. Next year I'll be as close as I've ever
On a
come.
more serious note, though, I was thinking about this, and we did change one of our finance meetings to the Friday before, which I think we're going to do again in the
That worked out good.
next year. So we don't have that.
That helped Renee with those end of the year amendments because
Yeah.
there's such a crunch time right there at that time.
So that gives you the weekend. I know you don't want to work the weekend, but it gives you the extra days instead of us coming in on that Monday finance at noon, and so we did it that Friday. I forget why, but that seems that we'll do that again in this calendar year or this budget year
Yeah,
as well.
That's good.
All right. Anything else? Next meeting? Oh, apologize. I got to remember the new law.
Yeah.
You're ahead. Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to address this finance committee? Well, somebody. I got to have one. Seeing that there's not anybody who wishes to address the finance committee, our next finance committee will be September the 5th. Tuesday, since we're going to be taking Labor Day off. Very good. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you later.